All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. One of the things that I kind of noticed over the years of doing this podcast is that not only do I have people on sort of multiple times talking about one project, but because of the way the Winnipeg music scene is and how incestuous it is and how everyone's in each other's projects and sort of works through all the different bands in the scene, it's not unusual to have a guest on talking about something different, even a couple of years after talking about a different band. So the guest on this episode is someone who definitely fits that category. Um, I think the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and just give a bit of background about what it is you do as an artist, and then we can sort of get into it from there.
Absolutely. What a great description for the Winnipeg music scene. Man, that explains it perfectly. I am Chelliot Ocean today. I currently play in about three bands, maybe four.
That was my
Um,
next question, actually, is how many bands are you in? But yeah, I'll keep going here.
right now, three. I play in my project called Full Paper. Uh, Recently started up, have one single out, and just started, I'd say this year, yeah. And I play in another band called Julian's Daughter, and obviously did an interview with you a few years ago,
Yep.
which was great. And I currently play in Jay Wood as well with my homie Jeremy Haywood Smith, and been in that band for about 2 years now, maybe a year and a half.
And you've
And
done some crazy touring with that band too. I mean, I've had Jeremy on a few times over the years on the show as well, and I mean he's always doing super cool stuff, and it's really interesting to see sort of all of the band members are all in other bands too, right? So when I started to see you showing up on his social media, I was like, oh, okay, I know who that is. It's it's
yeah,
it's it's
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool.
exactly. Done some insane touring, and like you said, it's such an incestuous, group of musicians in Winnipeg. And yeah, Jeremy asked me to play a couple years ago, and at that time we were already friends. I had played. I was in another band way back when called Arenas, who they've migrated to Toronto now. So shout out to Arenas. Um, and we opened for Jaywood. Arenas opened for Jaywood for I think Jeremy did an EP release back then.
Okay.
And by that time, Jeremy and I were starting to become friends, and I was starting to become more integrated into the Winnipeg music scene. And I just came from the States. I don't know if you know this, but I came from Michigan, 2016, and started to build the relationships up here in Winnipeg with the music scene. And Jeremy was one of them. So he asked me to hop on. I was like, of course, all the
Yeah.
places they were going. I was like, absolutely, I'm coming. So, it was not, it was an easy answer. It was
Yeah.
an easy yes.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. And I do want to get into fold paper because that's kind of what we're going to talk about, I think, for the most part today. But
Yeah.
what you just said about being from Michigan, I'm always curious what Winnipeg's music scene, because I've been here, I've been in Manitoba for 40 years of my whole life, and like I have this view on what the music scene is that I think is maybe a little skewed because I'm so kind of invested in it as a like a collector and nerd and everything else.
Yeah.
What was your impression of the music scene here when you first came here,
Man, when I first came here,
or when you first, I
I
guess, became aware of what was going on here as far as
yeah,
music?
yeah. My first thought was just that it was so accepting. It was so accepting. I think I'm not sure who Arenas did our first show with, but it definitely had something to do with Real Love. I'm pretty sure, the Real Love guys were a part of it, but that's where I had my first experience with the music scene, and it was just so easily accepting, and I was able to get right into it. I didn't have to, work too hard to be like, hey, we would really like to play a show. Can we do that? And they're like, absolutely. And like I said, we set that show up with Jeremy,
Yeah.
played a ton of other shows with Real Love and bands in Real Love. Um, Sorry, bands that work closely with Real Love. And yeah, like I was just so shocked at how accepting it was. And that was my first real experience with like an actual community of musicians. So it was a really nice one to come into, you know?
It's good to hear. And the reason I wonder that always is because, like we talked about at the beginning, it's incestuous. Everyone has been in each other's bands for the past decade or so, and you switch bands, and it's all the same people kind of going back and forth. And I'm always curious what it's like for a newcomer to sort of
Yeah.
come in and just get involved in that gene pool.
Yeah, yeah. It was a great experience, and I think I did kind of help myself a little bit because I'm a huge people person. I love people, love striking up conversations with anyone, especially when I'm at a venue. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like there's always a connection to be made. So I'm always trying to do that. So I think that having that aspect of things would really, really help. But all the same, it was still so like, boom, you're in. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's the impression that I've had of it too. But again, I feel like I'm too close to it to sort of
Yeah,
know if that happens to everyone, right? So that's cool.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
Fold Paper, it's I guess your newest project of the projects that you have on the go. How did this get started? And you said it's only a year old, so this is kind of right in pandemic is sort of still going on, and you're
Exactly.
in like 16 other bands. How did you get this going?
Exactly, man. Fold paper. So fold paper, as much as like it's only been a year of like playing shows, it's been like 2 or 3 years in the making. Like, and when I say in the making, I mean like the music has been, been there for so long, even, for the past 3, 4 years. So full paper is just that embodiment of me putting all of this music into one place and, wanting to perform it so badly that, obviously that I brought a band together and we started playing shows. So yeah, Full Paper started I say I don't what was our first show was with Real Love. We opened for Blessed from Vancouver, BC. Or I don't know if it's Vancouver, but it's BC. And then Stuck, who's another post-punk band from Chicago.
Oh,
So that
cool.
was our first gig, and it was such an amazing gig because I had listened to Blessed for years. They were actually one of the first few bands I saw in Winnipeg. Blessed was, and then Stuck. I'd listened to them for the past, I think, 2 years, maybe a year. So when Adam Soloway and Gil offered me that gig, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like 100%. Um, yeah, like I said, Full Paper is just the embodiment of all this music that I've written, that I'd put together on in GarageBand, uh, and wanting to, and I'm like, it's time. I want to share this music with folks, even if I can't record everything, and even if all I can do is these demos from GarageBand, I still want to be able to perform, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where Full Paper came from. It's just, so many years of like writing and so many years of being influenced by all these bands like Blessed, Stuck, Palm, Women, uh, huge, amazing band called Unschooling from France. So many influences. Yeah, and here we are.
Was this sort of a way too to get like to give yourself an opportunity to play that kind of music? Because it's different from the other bands you're in, obviously, right? I mean that post punk thing is not necessarily there in the other projects you have going on.
Exactly, you hit it right on the head, man. Like every time, like I would play in these bands, I love, obviously, I love Julian Zarro, I love Jaywood, I love all the other bands I played in. But yeah, like Full Paper was just, like you said, an opportunity for me to get out that, edgy post-punk stuff that's been, riling up inside me. And I had to grasp that opportunity. And yeah, yeah, that was, pretty straightforward.
What's the appeal of that stuff to you? Like, what is it about that kind of music that hits you and inspires you?
Oh my gosh, man, where do I start? Um, so the first thing I can say about that is that there's so many angles to post-punk that you can take that you can do whatever and call it post-punk and people will be like, yep, that's post-punk. Let's take it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's loosely defined, right? It's hard to pin down sort of what post punk is. Yeah,
exactly, exactly. And that's really, really what I love about it. And I mentioned all these bands from before, and when you listen to these bands, they're um, so different in their own ways, but then they fall under that umbrella of post-punk. And that being said, some of these bands are like, yeah, we're post-punk, but then you can also call us indie rock, you can also call us math rock, but they will still latch onto that label as post-punk. And yeah, it's just such a like a free moving genre, and like you said, super loosely defined. And that's really the first thing that I loved about it. And then just being able to be like, okay, it came so like when I wrote music, it came so easily, to write stuff like that and be like, yeah, I think this would be called post-punk. So that was another reason that's another reason I really fell in love with the genre. Is just I had a natural inkling to be able to write stuff like that, write like edgy stuff, write syncopated,
Yeah.
in a syncopated way. And another thing I love about it is the fact that you don't have to sing too much at all. And you can only say that about a few genres. But post punk is one of them, man. I talk my way through these songs, and it's such a good feeling because as much as I love to sing, I don't have a great singing voice. But yeah, just say what you want to say any way you want to, yell it, scream it,
Yeah.
whisper it, and it flows so well with it.
Right. There's not
Yeah,
a tight guideline of how you're supposed to do vocals. It's as open ended as the genre is.
exactly, exactly.
One of the things that over the course of doing this show, I tend to like over certain time periods get stuck on certain questions that I become obsessed with and keep asking people. And I have one now that I've been kind of bothering people with for the past few months, and it really is kind of related to what we are talking about sort of that open endedness of the genre. And it really, it's like I have this theory that may or may not be true, but the way that music is consumed nowadays, right? I mean, most people are streaming. Most people have access to just like the entire world's history of music at a click of a button. Do you think that that availability of everything all at once without kind of having it contextualized, do you think that makes it easier for people to get into genres that maybe wouldn't have been put in front of them in the first place? Just the idea that there's no timeline. Music is just all in one big bin, and you can just grab from it. Whereas when I was growing up, it was very much you go to the record store, you look in the right section. You want to buy
Yeah,
punk LPs, you go to the punk tapes, you go to the punk section, and then you go over
yeah.
to the the country section if you're a country fan. But it wasn't just all presented on a platter.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And I think you have it exactly right. Having all that music and all this content and all this information available does make it super easy for people to be able to latch on. And when you said that, the first thing I thought about was TikTok.
Yeah,
And I know a lot of people might not be able to relate, but I'm on TikTok all the time, and a lot of people are. And I've heard of like so many bands and so many like artists who have had this like rejuvenation just because all of this stuff is so available to you. And kids, like teenagers, will latch onto bands like oh, what's I can't remember this band. Fleetwood Mac.
okay,
Fleet Freaking Fleetwood Mac. One of their songs got huge on TikTok. Um uh um there's a band that our second show, Full Paper's second show, we opened for Holy Fuck.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they've been around for so long. And they also just had this like re-up on TikTok of one of their songs going crazy because it was put on there's a animated show uh and that show went crazy on TikTok, and this song was behind it, and people just latched onto that song. So like, yeah, you're exactly right. People have all this music available to them. So like, eh, I keep saying kids, and by kids I mean like young folks,
totally. I know what you
millennials.
mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they're able to latch on to older things, older bands, older genres who that may have like, I don't want to say died, but maybe not as popular, but then they give it that rejuvenation, they give it that re-up.
yeah.
And same for like, older folk and new age music. You know what I'm saying? It works all the same way. So you're exactly right. Having all that information just makes it easy to um to latch onto different genres. Yeah.
Well, and the reason I thought about it with you too, and talking about post punk, is that post punk. I mean, officially, I guess technically, post punk is this genre that lasted for a relatively short amount of time. In what the early '80s,
Yeah.
and then kind of mainstream popular music moved on to something different and something different something different. But now post punk, like everything else, is just kind of eternal because
Yeah.
it's just there, right? So it's the idea that you would have discovered this in the 2010s or whatever is not that weird anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas 10 years ago, it might have seemed like, how did you find that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And uh that's exactly how I got onto bands like, Women and Preoccupations and other bands like that. It's just like it's all available there. And as much as like there's all this mainstream music, people like me who have the love for music can do those deep dives and
Yeah.
find all these bands and stuff. So yeah, exactly right. That's how I made my connections with
Cool.
that genre. And yeah, and I love how you mentioned, like, post punk was, it wasn't that long. It
It was
happened
a
for a
blip.
short period
It
of
was a
time.
blip
Yeah,
on the timeline. Yeah.
exactly. And then I think what bands like mine and bands like, Stuck and Unschooling are calling it, and it's got that revivalism. So they're saying post-punk revival. So we're trying to revive it, trying to bring it back, trying to, bring it back to the forefront of music and stuff. We're making it cool. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We're making it something that's like easily attainable.
Well, I think that's the good thing about whenever something is revived like that, because it happens all the time with genres of music, right?
Yeah,
And it definitely kind of gives it, because of all these new influences that are inevitably going to come in there, it changes it. So it's not just post punk like it was in 1983. It's
exactly.
post punk with the past like 40 years of influences added to it, right?
Exactly, exactly. Post-punk with a twist. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? We're adding that new age twist to it. And yeah, that I can't, I always think about it that way. It's like you're making it cool again. You're making it cool to be in a rock band. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Making it a normal thing. Um, in an age where like there's so much music that's just, and I'm not saying this is bad or anything, but like there's an artist on stage just has a mic, has the backing track, and it's all going. Um, making and that's not to say that like, bands went out of the mainstream, but I don't know. It's just me. I feel like it's bringing it more to the surface and making it like oh, you play in a band? Oh, cool, cool.
yeah.
And that's like a normal thing to say these days. So yeah,
Like
that's what
maybe it
I'm.
wasn't
That's
for a
what I,
while. Maybe it kind of died out for a bit, and then
yeah,
now
yeah,
it's becoming cool again. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
So you have the single out now, and like you said, you have some demos out and everything like that. What's the plan for releasing a larger project?
Boy, oh boy. So I'm gonna be blunt. Right
Sure.
now, I'm ready to go into the studio. I have all the material, so many songs. All I'm waiting for is I've written two grants that I'm waiting on. As soon as I get word from those grants, as soon as they're like yes, I'm gonna hop
Cool.
right in. So what I want to do is release a couple more singles. Do a few showcases that are coming up. Can't say too much about those,
Yeah,
but
no worries.
showcases, shows, and build the hype up a bit more before I'm like, okay, ready to make an EP or ready to make an LP or whatever it may be. So I just want to do singles, little by little, and then boom, whenever I'm ready to pull out a big thing, get into the studio and do it. Ready to go into the studio now, but just need the
Yeah,
cash,
fair enough. Yeah, I think a lot of
Yeah,
people are in that situation for sure.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
I mean, the good thing about this being a podcast, right, is someone could hear it the day it comes out, or they could hear it a year from now, and maybe by then, maybe you do have stuff out. What's
Yeah.
the best way to find out what you're up to online? First of all, hear your music, but also just watch your upcoming shows and things like that.
Yeah, always. Right now, it's Instagram. Just everywhere I'm talking about the music, talking about the shows, talking about the release dates. It's going to be on Instagram. That being said, Spotify is up now. It's kind of new to me to say that because it just became a thing in the less than a month ago.
Okay,
But Spotify's up now. If you give Full Paper a follow on Spotify, they'll let you know when stuff's coming out and stuff is released. But yeah, Full Paper's all over our social media. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, we've got Linktree that gives you all these links to all the stuff we've done. We've done, live videos and all these interviews.
yeah, you did that
So
from the attic session, which was really cool.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we did that with the Argyle guys. It's helped out so much.
I bet, yeah.
um People that have seen it on the YouTube and they're commenting, they're like, yeah, wow, this band is great. And I feel like that live video gave like another, like if I didn't do that live video, it would just be the Spotify and me being like on Instagram, go listen to my song, you know what I'm saying? But it got about 800 views on YouTube, so it gives it that other you know way of segueing into the music. So I'm really glad for the Argyle Studio guys.
Yeah, it makes you, it gives you just a nudge up from everyone else who's released an album in the past 25 minutes, you know, there's millions of them.
Exactly. 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 Gives that edge, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.